Who's steering your thoughts? You or someone else? A wild mind leads to a restless life. Control your mind or be controlled by everything. If you don't control your mind, someone else will. That's not a dramatic thought, it's a daily reality. In today's world, attention is currency. Every ad, every scroll, every headline is designed to capture your mind before you do. Most people don't realize it. They wake up and immediately give their thoughts away to news, to emails, to arguments from yesterday. Their mind becomes a battleground, and they never even knew the war had started. That's why Stoicism begins with awareness. Awareness that your mind is not something to be ignored, but something to be trained. Epictetus warned us, "You become what you give your attention to." That isn't metaphor. It's neuroscience. What fires together, wires together. Every time you focus on fear, it grows stronger. Every time you feed anxiety, it digs deeper roots. But here's the good news: you can rewire, you can reshape. That's what both ancient Stoicism and modern science agree on. The mind is plastic, but only in the hands of a present owner. Imagine your mind as a house. If you leave the door open, anything can walk in stress, envy, noise. But if you stand at the door and choose, you create space for peace, clarity, and purpose. Ask yourself, who's the gatekeeper of your inner world? You or the algorithm? You or your last failure? Reclaim that space, reclaim that control, because the battle for your mind is the battle for your life. Share your experience in the comments. How have you applied Stoicism or mind control in your own life? You've taken back the reins, but now what? What happens when you finally start guiding your thoughts instead of being dragged by them? That's where philosophy steps in, not just as theory, but as a way of life. The Stoics believe that happiness isn't found in what happens, but in how we interpret it. A calm mind doesn't come from a calm world. It comes from clarity within. Epictetus didn't say to fix the world, he said, to fix our thoughts about the world. Seneca wrote that suffering comes more from imagination than reality. And Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, reminded himself daily, the mind shapes the life you live. And it wasn't just Stoicism. Aristotle, centuries earlier, taught that we become what we repeatedly do, but long before we act, we think. Thought becomes habit, habit becomes character, and character becomes fate. So if you want to change your life, don't start with your calendar. Start with your cognition. What do you believe about yourself? What stories do you replay in silence? What assumptions do you carry that were never yours to begin with? Take a moment to notice. Are your thoughts helping you or holding you back? Are they guiding you toward virtue or dragging you into reactivity? The world will always throw noise at you, but your interpretation, your filter, that's yours alone. And like a muscle, it strengthens with use. The more you train your mind to return to stillness, to reframe pain, to question your impulses, the more you shape not just your day, but your destiny. So ask yourself now, what kind of life do your thoughts lead you to? And are you willing to lead them? If your thoughts shape your life, then science wants to know how. For thousands of years, Stoics like Marcus Aurelius taught that our mind is the architect of our reality. But today, modern psychology and neuroscience are catching up with tools, terms, and proof. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is one of the most widely used research-backed methods in mental health. And at its core is a single truth. You can't always change your circumstances, but you can always change your thoughts about them. A distorted thought can lead to an emotional spiral, anxiety, guilt, avoidance. But one reframed belief, one shift in mental lens, can open the door to clarity, strength, and action. A person stuck in the belief, "I always mess things up," will hesitate, withdraw, sabotage. But if they pause and question that belief, is that always true? What about when I succeed? The entire chain reaction begins to change. Thought becomes emotion. Emotion becomes behavior. Behavior becomes identity. And identity shapes destiny. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman explained this with his model of two systems, System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic, intuitive. It helps us survive, but often leads us astray. It overreacts, oversimplifies, and makes snap judgments. System 2, on the other hand, is slower, more effortful, but more accurate. It's the voice of reason, but only if you pause long enough to listen. Most of us live in System 1, but the great work, the Stoic work, is to awaken System 2 more often and make it stronger over time. What's beautiful is how all of this connects. Ancient wisdom said, "Train your mind and you train your life." So next time you feel stuck, don't fight the emotion. Trace it. Track it back to the thought behind it. Question that thought. Reframe it. Because your next decision, your next step, your next chapter might depend on it. Chaos in the mind always finds its way into the world. When you don't take the time to master your inner world, it leaks into your health, your work, your relationships. That's not just philosophy, that's reality. The Stoics were clear about this. Suffering doesn't come from events themselves. It comes from our interpretation of those events. As Epictetus said, it's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. And those judgments left unexamined become storms we carry everywhere. Modern science confirms this ancient truth. Overthinking isn't just exhausting, it's dangerous. When your thoughts run wild, your nervous system follows. Cortisol rises, sleep becomes shallow. Your body stays on high alert, as if every thought were a real threat. Anxiety builds not from what is, but from what might be. And soon, your present becomes poisoned by imaginary futures. Let's bring this down to earth. Imagine someone named Chris, a mid-level manager at a tech firm. One mistake in a client email, just one small oversight, and their mind spirals. What if I get fired? What if everyone thinks I'm incompetent? That night, Chris can't sleep. Thoughts race. The body tightens. The next day, sleep-deprived and anxious, Chris forgets a major deadline, and the fear becomes real. Not because of the original mistake, but because of the unchecked thinking that followed it. This is the real cost of an untrained mind. Not just missed sleep, but missed clarity. Not just poor work, but fractured self-trust. One spiral leads to another, and before long, you're not reacting to the world anymore. You're reacting to your thoughts about it. That's why the Stoics practiced daily reflection, not to suppress emotions, but to inspect them, to slow things down, to ask, is this thought true? Is it useful? Or is it just noise? If you don't slow your mind down, it will speed your life up in the wrong direction. You don't fix overthinking with more thinking. You fix it by observing the first thought before it becomes 1,000. You fix it by returning to stillness again and again. If left unchecked, the mind spirals, but when trained, it transforms. That's the turning point, from mental chaos to mental command. This is where mind control becomes something deeper, not just a survival tool, but the foundation of true self-mastery. The Stoics knew this long before modern science had a name for it. You can't control the weather, the economy, or another person's anger, but you can control how you respond. And that response is everything. As Epictetus said, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. Today, neuroscience backs this up. The brain is not fixed, it's flexible. It rewires. It adapts. This is the power of neuroplasticity. Your thoughts, when repeated, become your default. Every time you pause instead of react, you lay down a new neural pathway. Every time you observe instead of explode, you strengthen the circuits of clarity. Self-control isn't luck, it's design. Think of willpower like a muscle. No one wakes up with six-pack abs. It's trained daily, patiently, through repetition. You don't lift a heavy weight once and call yourself strong. You lift it every day, even when it hurts, even when it's boring. Mind control works the same way. You sit with discomfort instead of numbing it. You breathe through the urge to lash out. You redirect attention when distraction tempts you. These tiny victories done daily build an inner fortress. It's tempting to think of self-mastery as some heroic, dramatic shift, but in reality, it's subtle. It happens in moments no one sees: when you pause instead of panic, when you listen instead of argue, when you choose discipline over impulse. Over time, those choices build something unshakable. The world may never be still, but you can be. That's the paradox of Stoicism. You become strongest not by controlling the world, but by mastering the only thing you ever could: your mind. Mind control isn't just a philosophy, it's a daily practice. It only becomes real when tested in the noise of everyday life. The office, the kitchen, the scroll. These are the battlegrounds of the modern mind. Let's see what Stoicism looks like when applied in real time. At work, mind control is the art of holding your attention when everything tries to steal it. Distractions come dressed as urgent, but urgency is not always importance. Take Jordan, a project manager juggling 5 tasks. A coworker tries to pull him into a workplace drama. Instead of engaging, Jordan says, "I've got deliverables to finish, let's talk after." He returns to his screen, stays in his lane. By the end of the day, his task is done and his peace is intact. That's not detachment, that's focus, protected by intention. At home, mind control means pausing before we let emotion turn into damage. One harsh word can undo years of trust. Picture Anna and her partner mid-argument, voices rising. She feels the heat behind her eyes. The old habit is to snap back, to win. But this time she says, "Let me take a walk. I'll come back in 10. That pause doesn't erase the problem, but it saves the relationship from saying something it didn't mean. That's not weakness, that's emotional strength in motion. On social media, mind control means protecting the clarity of your mind in a world designed to hijack it. Every swipe invites comparison. Every post suggests you're behind. But what if you chose to scroll with awareness, or not scroll at all? Take Chris. After 10 minutes on Instagram, he notices his mood drop. He shuts the app, opens his notes, and writes down 3 things he's grateful for instead. That single shift from envy to awareness reclaims the timeline of his mind. In every arena of life, the opportunity is the same. Catch the moment before it catches you. Choose your response. Protect your peace. Mind control doesn't remove the noise, it teaches you how to move through it, untouched at the center. Mastery doesn't come from knowing, it comes from training. We don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our habits. And that's where willpower becomes your daily ally, not as a weapon of force, but as a quiet discipline of attention. Stoicism never promised ease. It offered clarity, and clarity requires practice. One of the most powerful tools? Journaling. Not the kind filled with pretty quotes and stickers, but the raw, honest kind. In the morning, you set your intention. What do I want to remember when pressure hits? At night, you reflect. Where did I lose control today? What triggered me? What can I do differently tomorrow? Marcus Aurelius did this nightly. His journal wasn't for the world, it was for his own soul. Then there's breath, the most ancient and accessible tool we have. When stress spikes, the breath shortens, the heart races, the mind spirals. But a single conscious breath can reset the whole system. Try it. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, pause for 4. The world doesn't slow down, but your nervous system does. In that pause, clarity returns. You remember, you're not your thought, you're the one watching it. Now let's go even simpler. The 10-second pause. You don't need a mat, a notebook, or an app. Just the moment before you respond. Something happens. You want to react, but you stop. You count to 10 slowly. You observe the emotion rise and fall. Maybe the urge passes, maybe it doesn't. That's the true meaning of strength. Not the absence of emotion, but the presence of attention. The ability to hold stillness inside when everything outside pulls you to move. Mind control isn't about being cold, it's about being clear. And clarity, like any virtue, must be trained. Breath by breath, page by page, pause by pause. Stillness is not the end goal, it's the gateway. Because once you've trained your mind, once you've mastered your response, something surprising happens. You start to feel free. Not because the world has changed, but because your relationship with it has. The ancient Stoics were clear on this. They believed real freedom wasn't political, financial, or circumstantial. It was internal. Epictetus, born a slave, wrote more about freedom than most emperors. Why? Because he understood, if your peace depends on what others do, say, or think, then you are not free. Freedom is not out there, the Stoics said. It begins in here. Thanks for watching. When Mida Depsa, Wintu and Baiven. Centuries later, Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, echoed that truth. He lost his family, his home, his freedom in every external sense. But he discovered something no one could take: his power to choose his attitude. In his darkest hour, he found light not by changing his circumstances, but by changing his relationship to suffering. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That is the final gift of mind control. Liberation. When your mind no longer flinches at discomfort, no longer clings to outcomes, no longer reacts to every headline, opinion, or judgment, you are free. You're not numbing yourself to life. You're showing up fully without being pulled apart by it. Imagine walking into a chaotic room, everyone's shouting, rushing, complaining, but you remain centered, not because you're better, but because you've trained your mind to anchor inward. That's not coldness, that's composure. That's not arrogance, that's clarity. You've stopped needing the world to be different in order to feel peace. You've stopped outsourcing your inner state. And in doing so, you've reclaimed your deepest power to live free no matter what surrounds you. Clarity leads to freedom, and freedom leads to responsibility. When you realize that peace isn't found out there, but cultivated in here, something shifts. You stop waiting for the world to calm down. You start calming yourself, and in doing so, you become the still point in a spinning world. If you've followed this journey, you now understand the core truth that ancient Stoics, modern psychologists, and spiritual thinkers all agree on. Control your mind and you reclaim your life. Not because the storms stop coming, but because you become the one who stands calmly in the center of the storm. Let's make this practical. Here's a challenge. Write down 3 things you cannot control, things that usually trigger stress, anger, or overthinking. Then write down 3 things you can control: your attention, your response, your daily habits. Look at both lists. Which one do you usually spend more time on? Which one actually shapes your well-being? This single act of reflection can shift the course of your day, even your life. Because awareness is the first step to liberation. And if there's one quote to carry forward, let it be this from Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space is where your power lives. So take this with you. Practice the pause. Breathe with intention. Reflect with honesty. And return again and again to the only thing you truly own: your mind. If this message resonates with you, help it reach others. Subscribe to the Stoic Room for more slow thinking in a fast world. Like this video if it helped you find a little stillness today. And remember, the world may be loud, messy, unpredictable, but you can remain calm. You can stay grounded. You can walk through chaos with peace in your heart. Be calm. Be strong. Be steady in all things.